Today we've got a great revenge story against a nightmare landlord. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, I have the worst neighbors, children out of control yelling, so I give them a theme song. I moved here 2 years ago, haven't been able to sit and relax in my yard for one time. It's always children screaming hysterically at the top of their lungs, very loud music and adults yelling. Talking to them won't help. They're really stupid and can't be reasoned with because they can't for the life of them see other perspectives. So now every time they sit in the backyard, I have circus music on repeat. They are too stupid to realize the effect it has on them. At first they laughed, but after the 8th time on repeat, they start to make loud comments how it doesn't get to them. Now their visitors always leave. Freak these people. Edit, here's some context since someone called me out for being insufferable. They talk behind my back in their backyard, like we don't live next to each other. I mean screaming, not having fun. The children have personality disorders because they're hyper all the time. I know because they're loud and everything. As someone pointed out, I have no credentials to make this comment about personality disorders, etc. I do regret it and I will try to do better next time. 3. They destroyed parts of my home and threatened me with death. 4. Every major holiday is about them. We tried to have dinner around dinner time on Christmas, but the windows were shaking from the base. 5. During the week, they sit in their backyard and sing loudly at 2 a.m. I guess I'm a little bench for wanting to sleep because I have to work. 6. Children screaming at midnight because they are playing. 7. How normal people yell is how they speak. 8. They told me that they've been living here for 10 years and every person that lived here before me has complained about their behavior, but it's not them, it's the people that live here. 9. They abused their dog. One time left the poor doggy in an empty pool when it was 30+ Celsius. The dog is always left in the backyard crying. Called the authorities multiple times, but no one is willing to do anything. 10. They mentally abuse their children, which is really depressing, especially since they're loud and I hear everything. I tried to reason with them for almost 2 years now. I waited for almost 2 years for them to behave like normal people who are considerate of their surroundings. But yeah, I'm the insufferable little bench, as someone mentioned. If everything OP said is true, that's quite shocking, and especially shocking that when you call the authorities, they repeatedly don't do anything. At that point, I would say like OP should honestly just have some kind of recording. I'm not saying record the neighbors, I'm saying just having a camera of your backyard and just having the audio of like a dog whining all night. Would that not be compelling to somebody? At Domain Piedetra wrote, I have a problem with a restaurant next door who lets their kids use the terrace as a soccer field. They use the metal gate to score goals. I found some great experimental music that uses garbage can lids for percussions, and waiting for the terrace to fill with customers to introduce them to this genre of music. Planning on all windows wide open and music blaring. Think you can make my life heck by letting your kids ruin my peace? I'll hit you where it hurts, in the wallet. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy awesome stories of revenge, it would be amazing if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast. That said, our next story is, I smudge up their window because they wouldn't move out of my way. My 30-year-old female, husband, 31-year-old male, and I like to spend our mornings together since we're on opposite schedules. Usually this means he'll make coffee and I'll make breakfast, then we check in about our days and the goals we want to achieve before going about our days separately. Sometimes when we're feeling active or have run out of coffee, we'll walk the half a mile to the local convenience store and grab a cheap coffee and a snack before walking home. On this day, I was admittedly feeling pretty rough as I didn't sleep at all the night before. My husband was in a similar state, but was encouraging me to try to start the day on a happy note, being cheesy and lovey-dovey in the store. We grabbed our coffee, and as we were paying, the cashier noticed my husband's shirt and wanted to talk to him about it. A niche, low-key video game reference. I decided I'd go wait for him outside since it was nice and warm and the sun was only just starting to rise. However, 2 employees were blocking the only entrance, a glass door, and seemingly didn't notice me. I did that awkward thing where I moved both my arms like I was trying to swim around them and clear to my throat. I even tried to say, "Excuse me," a couple of times, very clearly trying to get outside, but they didn't budge. They were deep in conversation about this very attractive woman who had just left. They made a joke about how they just cleaned the door to check her out as she walked away. I stood there completely dumbfounded and waved sheepishly at them. At this point, one of the guys shifted to turn his back at me, but still didn't move. He just lowered his voice, said something I couldn't hear, and then both laughed. It was almost like they wanted me trapped there, so I started tapping my foot and asked if they'd kindly get out of my way. They did not. I glanced back at my husband, smiling and laughing with the cashier, and gave him the look. He wrapped up his conversation, met my side, and both men non-verbally got out of our way immediately. I pushed open the door, placing my palm on the glass instead of the handle, and smudged the whole thing up. One of the men had the audacity to call me out for it, saying he'd just cleaned it, but I ignored him. When we were a good bit away, my husband asked me what that was about. I'm not usually so passive-aggressive. I explained the situation, and he laughed. We have this joke about how he noticed when we walk together, men will automatically move out of the way for him, but won't move for me. They expect me to move for them. So he playfully gave me the full sidewalk. I love my husband. I mean, if they're just willingly not moving when you're trying to clearly go through, I think that's like clearance enough to just kind of bump right past them. But I guess at the same time, somebody that's as creepy as that saying, "Oh, I just cleaned the window so I could check her out," you don't really want to even have to bump past somebody like that. You kind of want to keep 6 feet of space at all times. Rocket MN69 wrote, I would have my elbows out and walked right through them saying "excuse me" as I bounced them to the side. Our next story is, sister-in-law refused to pick her own bridesmaid outfit, so I made her a prostitute. I've written about my piece of work sister-in-law before, but was recently reminded of this and thought I'd share. This happened in 2014. My husband and I had a cosplay-themed wedding. Guests were allowed to dress in costume or just be comfortable. The wedding party were dressed based on the TV show Firefly. My husband asked me to make his sister a bridesmaid, and I agreed, even though I don't like or get along with her. My only rule for what the bridesmaids wore was that it needed to be a character from the show, and I didn't want any repeats. So they just needed to let me know who they were going to be so I could make sure we were all different. My sister-in-law knew about this before she agreed to be in the wedding. The other 3 bridesmaids all picked their characters and assembled their costumes with very little or no input from me. Leading up to the wedding, she kept asking me what she should wear. My husband and I both encouraged her to watch the show. It's only 13 episodes and a movie to pick the character. She refused to watch even a single episode. There was even a time we were visiting and she asked us over to watch a movie. We suggested this show and she refused. I really just wanted this to be a super laid-back experience because we're not formal, serious people, but she was making it difficult. She asked me a couple more times what she should wear and finally asked me to just send her some options to pick from. I spent a bit of time finding characters and emailed her a list including screenshots and descriptions. I even took into account that she would be breastfeeding and would need an outfit that could accommodate that. I don't remember all the characters I sent, but they included the school teacher, the sex robot, companions, and a few others. Weeks later, she still hadn't even looked at the list and was asking me what she should wear again. I told her to look at the list and she said she would. A couple weeks later, she's asking again. It got really annoying that she was refusing to put any effort at all into it. Finally, she told me to just pick who she should be, so I picked the pregnant prostitute. She didn't even bother to look the character up after that and still pestered me about what specific clothes she should buy. She didn't find out until after the wedding that was who the character was, and she was really upset with me. I told her she should have picked her own character if it mattered. I have next to no experience with wedding plannings, bridesmaids, and whatnot, so I have no idea if OP did or did not handle this to the best of their abilities or as expected from a bride, but it definitely feels like there's a disappointing level of effort that was clearly not applied here. Like, I get it if you don't really want to put in too much legwork to make it work for this wedding. User No Relation said, if you're requiring someone to wear something, it's not unusual for you to hold their hand and be very specific. Our next story is, you comment about my weight, I comment about yours too. So there's this guy at work who walks around yapping a lot unnecessarily. We ran into each other at a hallway in our office and we stopped to say hi to each other, and there afterwards says, "What are you eating? 'Cause you gained a lot of weight these past few months." And I went like, "Apparently whatever you're eating, 'cause you've gotten fat too." Smile. And he went numb. He had his pals with him, and I'm sure it was embarrassing for him. Yay. I don't like body shaming, but I feel I had to in this instance because my policy is, stupid questions deserve stupid answers. Hope this teaches him to mind his business. I don't really know what anybody is going to expect in reply when they say something like that. I mean, you have to literally be intentionally trying to be a jerk to say something so stupid to another person. Like, of course OP's gonna come right back with something like that. You might as well prepare yourself to get slapped for saying something like that. Eastad1560 wrote, I have a part-time job where some folks feel free to hurl insults at me. I just say, same to you, in response. The looks on their faces are hilarious, like how dare I insult them in that way? And what are they going to do if they report me to my boss? That would just show more folks that they're a jerk. This next story is, suspended me for no reason? Okay, I quit. Enjoy the smell in your new truck. I got word that my office was firing some people, and it was due to less hours to go around. Funny enough, they're still posting on Indeed for new workers. That said, my bestie who taught me a lot in the industry was on the chopping block and was let go. However, it wasn't all her fault. She was a new hire. She fell within the 3 months probation time. Not saying the job was bad, but it's been 6 to 7 months since my work bestie left, and I was going to leave when she did, but the company kept stringing me along with promises of more hours and a better work truck, so I stayed. Last week Friday, one of my foremen told me to my face that the girl beside me was better at her job than me. It hurt my feelings, but I moved on. Monday morning, my bosses called me and asked why I wasn't allowed back on that site I was on Friday. I said I had no clue, but because of that, they took me off the schedule for 3 to 4 days. Days off I didn't ask for. They also punished me for a contract that ended a month ago due to me doing something someone senior than me told me to do, which is not relevant to the story. They lacked the communication to tell me I was suspended. So I called a friend from an old company yesterday and asked if he was busy with work, and he told me he was. I moved over to his company. While I did that, I called my other job and told them I quit. They gave me some runaround answer and demanded that I come in and work for them on Thursday when I wasn't on the schedule. In fact, they tried to tell me I was scheduled all week, but they canceled my shifts before they started, which baffled me. I said no, that I thought they were suspending me since I had all these days off. I proceeded to tell them I had received an offer and I took it and I would like somebody to pick up my work truck. Since they were so accommodating to me to not tell me about me being suspended, they told me to take time out of my personal day to drive to the office and drop it off. Now, I know they're a good company, but their business practices are the craps. To send a message that they stink, I took 6 black ice little air fresher trees and I stink bombed the work truck. I put one on the rear view mirror to at least say there was one in there to make it smell nice, but it's the other 5 they'll be looking for. That's what will make it stink for a long time to come. I know they switch the trucks often, so that beast will be making some poor idiot's eyes water for months on end. To me, the black ice smell gives me a headache. I'll let you know if my plan works out. My bestie still keeps tabs on people over there, so I won't be surprised of how well this turns out. Now I'm just wondering what this black ice freshener is. Is this like a known thing? Is this like the atomic bomb of car air fresheners? When you're the designated driver and your friends party a little too hard and there's an irreversible mistake, you just turn to the black ice air freshener and all will be righted? Ice Blue wrote, why you say they're a good company when they clearly aren't? Arc of Vengeance added, a company can be good at what they do, aka good for the customer, but horrible to employees. A company can also be generally a good company, but one department may have a horrible manager that makes department employees have a crap time. There are always nuances. These don't necessarily have to be black and white. Our next story is, put your sweaty feet on the train seats? Of course we're gonna move your shoe away. I just got off the train with my boyfriend. There were 2 rows of seats facing each other in front of our single regular row. The bloke was sleeping with his feet on the seat in front of him and had put his shoes on the ground. Mind you, it's warm around here, and sweaty feet are basically present on everyone. His girlfriend, I guess, was busy with her phone. So what do? Carefully move the shoe we could reach away using our own feet and pull it towards us, and then kick it back behind our seats underneath the luggage rack. When the last station was announced, we left our seats, and when he woke up, we heard him say, "Where's my shoe?" That single moment of panic was so worth it. Don't put your sweaty feet in train seats, people. This just takes me back to a year I spent in community college where there was this guy who, when he was working on a side project in a side room by himself, had this tendency to take his shoes off. And I remember going to the side room to grab something, and it was just a waft of foot stink hitting my nose when I walked in. And he's just sitting there idly working on something, kicking his feet back and forth under the table. I didn't call him out on it, but it's pretty embarrassing when the instructor comes by and says, "Can you put your shoes back on?" Biff Banter wrote, "The yeet was a neat feat due to the feet on the seat." Our next story is, friends made fun of my singing, so I sabotaged their performance. This happened a few weeks ago. I don't know how it is done in Protestant churches in other countries, but in our church, there's room for solos, duets, or different groups singing to the rest of the church during the service, which is not part of the liturgy. Two of my friends, let's call them Mark and Lucy, who happen to be siblings, always sing a duet on guitar almost every week. Sometimes they ask some other people to sing with them too. One Sunday morning, I overheard them laughing and talking with other people, making fun of me, saying I sucked, and how I couldn't carry a tune, and even the sound of me farting was pitchy. I know I'm not a good singer, but still, it was hurtful. So during the sermon, I excused myself to the toilet, and before I walked out, I decided to untune Mark's guitar, which was leaning against the wall at the back. When it was finally time for them to perform, it took them around 5 minutes trying to retune it while everyone was waiting and staring at them. It was really awkward. And even then, some of the strings were buzzing and he couldn't find their original key for Lucy to sing in. She ended up singing very, very low below her natural range, and it sounded like she was trying so hard not to burst into tears. It was so bad. Who sucks now, huh? Honestly, I just think the amount of bravery and courage it takes to stand up there and sing in front of people is insane. Like, I feel like I could hardly get up there and say something myself. Just OP being comfortable enough to be up there singing by themselves in front of the church is awesome enough. Coolest Cat wrote, I was an okay vocalist, made fun of by a similar duo. Wanna know what my vocal superpower was? Being able to sing a half step below and above my tenor range at will. You know what freaks up good singers? The guy next to you flipping tones every other phrase. The Sanch1128 added, nicely done. I'm a baritone who can drop down to low bass or go up to second tenor. I've been in a fair amount of musicals. A lot of guys and gals don't really learn their music, but skate by sort of singing the same notes as the person next to them. This doesn't really bother me, but when they're being jerks in general, I teach them a lesson by switching the part I'm singing. Yeah, just try to sing what I'm singing when you've never heard the part before because you thought faking my original part was enough. Only a couple of vocal directors have caught on to what I do to lazy, arrogant singers. Okay, OP, you can quit messing with him now. I know he's a crab for brains, I'll deal with him. Our next story is Grandma Card. Every year, me, male 16, my brother, male 21, and my dad, male 52, get my mom, female 51, a Mother's Day card, and always pick from the funny section. Last year, we had used up all of the cards and there were no new funny cards. My brother picked a card that wasn't bad, but wasn't as funny as I'd hoped. So I picked a card that said, a grandma is a great mom who's been promoted. At the time, I thought it was hilarious to give her this card, and I really wanted to. My brother didn't like my card, and against my protests, we got the unfunny card. Instead of just getting the card on my own that year, I set a reminder for this year's May to remember to get the grandma card. Cut to this year, and my dad said it was my turn to pick the Mother's Day card, as my brother picked one last year. I went straight to the grandma card, and the look on my brother's face as he remembered last year was incredible. He begged me not to get it like his life depended on me not getting this one card for our mom, who shares the same sense of humor as me. I'm now back at home with the card writing this. Worth it. Edit, since many of you said in the comments that my brother might have gotten somebody pregnant and that was why he was upset, I asked him about it. He looked at me like I had 3 heads and said, "What? I've never even had a girlfriend, and even if I did, I would make sure she didn't get pregnant until we wanted kids." I then asked him why he was upset about the card, and he just told me that our mom isn't even old, so he thought that she might take it the wrong way. I told my brother that he worries too much about these things, as in the past, she's never gotten mad about jokes like this. I told him that if he wants to, he can write something on the inside blaming me if she gets mad. He seemed alright about that, and he doesn't seem angry with me. I plan on updating after we give her the card. Also, I'll be writing on the inside that nobody is pregnant yet. Probably for the best that OP does add that disclaimer on the inside. Disclaimer, nobody's pregnant yet, this is just a joke. You're old. Happy Mother's Day. Wisdom of Pearl wrote, "You do realize that your mother is possibly going to think that one or both of you are announcing a pregnancy, or C's." Our next story is, Landlord put me through 3 years of heck. My landlord was a terrible human being. Honestly, calling him a human is even pushing it. Just a few things he's done to me over the past 3 years. Stole my dryer and other household products that are in a common area. Made me pay for a plumbing repair which was deemed normal wear and tear. Tried breaking into my house. Retaliated against me because I went to my lawyer after he sent me a letter about a parking spot. He tried charging me an extra $150 a month. Mind you, I was never late for rent in 3 years, except for when he made me pay for the plumbing repair, so the next month I was a couple days late. The list goes on. Now, this apartment was nowhere near nice. I found out the plumbing was illegal. He left me with a porch for years that had severe safety issues. The ceiling paint was always falling down, gas heater was not up to code, and so on. I finally got my chance to leave after he wanted to raise my rent $500 a month. He will do anything and everything to get more money out of his tenants. So I called the building inspector 4 days before I left. I told him everything. The porch, when he finally replaced it, didn't have a permit and was definitely not up to code. I told him about the plumbing and the heater. I went on and on. The inspector came over the very next day. I saw him taking measurements. Each violation is $500 a day fine until fixed. I honestly don't know what happened, but my god, did it feel good to finally get him back. He's at the very least on the town's radar. A week before I moved out, he tried telling me I needed to be out at a specific time. I never responded, and where I lived, that's not how it works. He tried to threaten me with the police if I wasn't gone. Well, I went to the police myself that morning to warn them. The landlord did come by, threaten me, and harass me. I called the police. They informed him I was in the right. Long story short, he had broken into my apartment. I had left to go to storage while I was gone. He nailed my door shut. I told the police to get the supervisor because I was over being harassed by this guy. Go figure, he left before the supervisor could get there. I'm positive he knew he would be arrested on site. Got the police report. They're charging him with a felony for breaking and entering. Fines plus a charge? Don't be a jerk to good people. I feel like this guy must have some actual issues going on. Maybe they've got some gambling debt or something. Like the way they're acting, the way they're desperate to get you out of there, the way they're desperate to get more money. This guy's life must just be like crumbling. Calabria Fundings wrote, "I had a landlord that threatened to evict us if our baby did not stop crying. In addition to a small discrimination settlement, I also got his unpermitted renovation of half of the building red tagged by the building department. After we left, I ran into him. He was still a jerk. I made sure to tell him I called the building department. Watching his head almost explode was quite nice. Crap bird. I'm looking to buy, but my current landlords don't even live in this state. I take care of any issues unless it's big. Much better here." Our next story is one for the ages, the best quitting a role I have ever seen. I recently chatted with a former colleague we'll call Jen. We worked at a large insurer. She reminded me of her epic quitting and takedown of the CMO. The workplace was absolute heck. 2 to 3 people crying at their desks, being singled out for minor mistakes and called every name in the book by execs in meetings, etc. Jen had sent an urgent email blast promoting a new benefit. However, she sent it to the wrong email list. No big deal in the grand scheme. The CMO emailed our 150+ marketing department saying something like, "Jen screwed up big time. Hopefully no one else is this dumb to do it again." That night, Jen swiped into the building, cleaned out her desk, left her badge and laptop, but not before replying all to CMO's email with, "Freak you. Everyone minus insert CMO and director names. It was a pleasure. I feel bad for you all." And attached a PNG of an email sent to her by a CMO prior to sending the wrong email, where the CMO and director approved it and the audience. To this day, it makes me laugh, and I respect the heck out of her. Is there not any kind of person, body, regulatory thing you can report a company to if people are, and not just one person, but multiple people, crying at their desks? I know it's a crazy thing, but people should not be having to cry at their jobs. Unless they're like, I don't know, a really sympathetic mortician or something. Pineapple Spinstar wrote, "Freak you, freak you, freak you, you're cool, freak you." Our next story is, this guy drives very loudly by my house every day. I found out where he lives and do the same. For context, I live sort of on a curve. Every single day this guy drives by my house around 6 p.m. in his big jacked up truck and will punch the gas and be very loud as he goes around the turn. He's got one of those stupid modified exhausts. He must know I don't like it because he'll be even more rambunctious if I'm outside. One day I was driving and recognized the truck, which apparently just so happens to be in his driveway about 2 miles down the road. So every time I drive by his house, I make sure to punch the gas and drive like a jerk. Sometimes I'll even lay on the horn a few times, even though it's late at night. Haha. I mean, it's a dangerous thing when you be a total jerk to a stranger and all of a sudden, that stranger knows where you live. I guess the opposite is they know where you live too, so. Live Motor 4000 said, now you know his address, you can sign them up for tiny you-know-what stuff. Our next story is, young hacker found his way into the wrong account and paid for it. So this was back in 2002, 2003-ish. I was somewhat addicted to the MMORPG RuneScape. I had a lot of friends, but there was one friend in particular that I played with a lot. We were both fairly invested in the game and we were in the top 2,000 on the leaderboards at the time. We both had well-developed accounts worth enough that I was offered $5,000 for my account once. I suspect it was a scam attempt, but it gives a vague idea of what our efforts might have been worth if we decided to sell our accounts. One morning I log into, I think it was MSN Messenger that we talked on most of the time, and my friend is very upset as his main account was hacked into. Weak password, keylogger, someone he trusted betrayed him, I don't know. However, it happened he couldn't get in. Worse, the person who did it managed to get his contact information and was taunting him over chat, threatening him and trying to blackmail him. I was enraged, and after about 2 hours of convincing, he finally agreed to give me the contact info of this person so I could talk to them. I'm no tech genius, but I know a few tricks my friend didn't and was too upset to learn at the time. I don't remember if it was from RuneScape or MSN, but I got the person's IP address, and the Whois tool to look up IP addresses was something I'd used a few times. So while I started laying into this person, I'm also looking them up. I know there's only so much information I can get, but it's worth a try. It's very quickly clear I'm speaking to a kid. Maybe 10 at the very youngest, more likely 14 to 16 range, and he's so cocky it was unbelievable. Just before Whois spits out his details, he says his dad is a cop and he's immune to anything. But then the Whois gives me a police department in a town in California as the source of the address. I'd never seen so specific information before, but I wasn't about to question it. I'd expected to get the region and use that, but now I had a golden ticket to victory. It took all of 30 seconds before the kid was totally freaking out and begging me not to call his dad as I rattled out his hometown and where his dad worked. I couldn't just call his dad, even knowing the police department location. No long distance on my phone at that time, but he didn't know that. An hour later, my friend had his account back, with bonus gifts. The kid was transferring items and gold around and all my friend's gold was gone. But I guess my timing was awesome because there was 10 times the value of the missing golden items that he gained in exchange. My friend and I played for another year or two before moving on. When I was a lot younger, I used to play RuneScape time to time, elementary school, middle school. Even in the last decade or two, I hopped on old school RuneScape a few times. I had a character with a password that wasn't too easy to crack, but even that was found, I'm assuming, by just some brute forcer. The company's recovery was actually very helpful and got it right back to me. I logged on, all my stuff was gone, and I just chatted around for fun to some of the other people in-game. Within like an hour, people had given me so much stuff that I probably had more than I had when I last logged off years prior. She's Insane or Not wrote, petty revenge with a side of justice. Friend's account was restored with apology gifts. Well done. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another awesome revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.